All right, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to get started on number 1 on the sentence completion part. So on number 1 it says, although John blanked the promotion to the new position, his enthusiasm was blank by anxiety about the additional responsibilities. So in looking at this sentence, we can look at the word although, and then we know that this is going to signify a contrast in the statement. And then let's go on. Although John blanked the promotion to the new position, and looking at this, it says promotion, and this is probably going to be something good. So we can probably assume in looking at the first blank, it is probably going to be something positive. Going on, his enthusiasm was blank by anxiety. And in looking at the word anxiety, what can we assume? It is probably going to be something negative. And we can also see that from the word although, which signifies a contrast. So if it's a positive in the beginning, then for the second blank it's probably going to be a negative. Okay, so let's look at the answers, A, B, C, D, E. And looking at just the first blank here, what can we cross out that is not a positive word? We can probably cross out which one? Maybe disliked, right? And then also probably discounted, and probably even supplied, because supplied, the promotion, would not fit into this sentence either way. So we can cross out C, D, and E, and then in looking at A and B, we can cross out A because of the word satisfied, right? Because it's not negative. So in looking at that, we know that the answer would be B. Although John welcomed the promotion to the new position, his enthusiasm was diminished by anxiety about the additional responsibilities. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. So let's go on to some short passage reading. Okay, so looking at this short passage, it says, before I ever saw myself, I saw my sister. When I was still too small for mirrors, I saw her as a reflection that proved my own existence. Back then, I was content to see only Cole, 3 years older than me, and imagine that her face, cinnamon-skinned, curly-haired, serious, was my own. It was her face above me always, waving toys at me, cooing at me, whispering to me, pinching me when she was angry, and I was the easiest target. That face was me, and I was that face, and that was how the story went. So let's look at the first problem, number 8. What do you think the question type for this question is? It says primary focus, so it is probably main idea, right? So it's a main idea question, and it says, the primary focus of the passage is on, and in looking at the answer choices, look at A, the narrator's confusion about mirrors. So it's not necessarily about mirrors, right? Because this is a main idea question. What is this entire passage about? It is not exactly about her confusion with mirrors. We can cross that one out, so it will not be A. What about B? The narrator's happy childhood. In this passage, can you see anything about the narrator talking about how happy she was in her childhood? She did talk about her childhood, but it wasn't necessarily, the passage wasn't necessarily about her being happy during her childhood. So we can cross out happy and childhood, which means B is not the right answer. And then looking at C, the narrator's identification with Cole, which means the narrator was able to identify with her sister, and let's leave that one because that one's probably very likely, right? So let's look at D. Cole's facial features. So is this entire passage about her facial features? Is it about how she looks and how she... So it is about her facial features. Okay, anyway, so the entire passage is not necessarily just about her facial features, so we can cross out facial features. cross out D. And then looking at E as well, is this entire passage about Cole's behavior, how she behaves? And not necessarily, right? So we are left with C, where it says the narrator's identification with Cole, because even in the passage she says that when she was too little and she looked, it says, when I was still too small for mirrors, I saw her as a reflection that proved my own existence, right? So she is able to identify herself through the identification of her sister, which means that C would be the correct